So now we're going to move on to the next set of examples, and if you notice, these look a little different because now I've got some parentheses involved and I have an operation inside the parentheses, and those are being raised to the power of 2. So I have the difference of x and 9 squared equals 64. My constant is already on the other side of the equal sign and it is positive, so I can use the square root method. But now what we're going to do is, before I can move my 9 over, I have to undo this power of 2. Well, what undoes a power of 2? Undoes a square, that would be the square root. And again, the square root and the power of 2 cancel, which is just going to leave me x minus 9 equals. And now I have to simplify my radical of 64. So 64, that would be a 2, which would make that a 32. Another 2 would make that 16. Another 2 would make that 8. Divide out of 2 would be 4. Divide out of 2 would be 2. And then to divide out of 2, that's going to be a 1 for my candle. So I'm ending up with a product of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 2's. And if I'm making groups of 2, how many groups of 2 can I make? I can make 1, 2, 3 2's. So that would be 1, 2, 3 2's that get moved out. So I would multiply 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and times 2 again would be 8. So that's going to make a positive negative 8. And now, here's what that means. That means x minus 9 is equal to 8, and x minus 9 is equal to a negative 8. So now we're going to solve our equation. So we're going to move our constant over. It's going to be x equals 17. Again, for the second solution, we're going to move our constant over. Don't forget to change the sign. So when I combine like terms, I'm going to have x is equal to 1. And those are my 2 solutions. Now this time I did not end up with a negative and a positive solution, but I can always go back to my calculator and I can check. Again, for it to go into y equals, I have to have all of my terms on the same side of the equal sign. So this 64 is going to have to move back over. So I'm going to have x minus 9 squared, and then I would have minus 64. And I'm going to hit graph. Now, if you don't see it cross twice, you may have to zoom out. So I see one solution here, so I'm going to zoom out because it looks like it crosses outside my viewing window. So zoom 3, enter. And I do have 2 solutions. Again, notice where they cross on the x-axis. They cross on the positive side of 0, which does make sense for me. Now, since I'm getting whole number answers, I can also verify my graph if they are. Oh, I see 1 and a 0, so that solution does check out. Let's see if we go up to 17. Will we have a 0 in our table? And we do. So we know that we have verified our solutions mathematically on paper with our calculator. Okay, final example. So again, we want to move all of our constants that are outside the parentheses to the other side. So I'm going to be left with x minus 2 squared equals 25. And before I can move this 2 over to the other side, I have to take care of this square, this power of 2. So I'm going to square root or unsquare both sides, which is going to cancel out the power of 2. So I'm going to be left with x minus 2 is equal to, well, now I have to simplify the radical square root of 25. So let's find our prime numbers for 25. 5. And I can divide by 5 again to get my 1. So my product of prime numbers that I can rewrite 25 as is 5 times 5. And again, I'm looking to make groups of 2. I can make one group of 2 with my 5, so that means I have 1 5 outside the square root, and it's left with a positive and negative. because I have to have two solutions when I take the square root of a number. And so now I have x minus 2 equals a positive 5, which means x has to have a value of 7, because what's the value of x when I take away 2 and I end up with 5? It has to be 7. I also get x minus 2. What if that was equal to a negative 5? So what would that value of x be if I took away 2 and I ended up with a final answer of negative 5? Well, if you're not sure, move your constant over. Don't forget to change the sign, and that would be a negative 3. So x would be equal to 7, and x could be equal to a negative 3, and that would work for the solution. Again, I'm going to check my answers in my calculator. So I'm going to go back to my original, and when I started off, all my terms were on the same side. So I'm just going to type in x minus 2 squared minus 25, and I'm going to hit graph. And I'm going to go back to my original window. So I'm going to zoom 6 to set it back to my original window. And I should get two solutions. Cross this twice. And it looks like it crosses at negative 3 and 7. But again, if they're whole number answers I'm getting, I can check those in my table. So I happen to be at 7, and there's a 0. So that solution checks out. Now we're going to go to negative 3 in the x column and see if there is a 0. And that does check out. So my answers are correct. I did verify them not only on my graph, but in my table with what I got when I worked it out by hand. And so now you're going to look to complete your homework assignment on square root method. Just don't forget, when you take the square root, you should have a positive and a negative answer.